Hello everyone, with the Jamaica here, and welcome to this updated video on weather across Jamaica and the rest of the Caribbean. It is Saturday evening, May 10, 2025. Now before we jump into it, please ensure that you guys like the video. I'd really appreciate it if you guys get this video up to 100 likes. If you don't know by now, that's how the YouTube algorithm works. We all like the video and then the YouTube algorithm pushes the video out to more persons who are in the path of these tropical systems so that we can keep everyone safe, especially during the peak months of Atlantic hurricane season that's August through to October. Share this video with your friends, your co-workers, your relatives, and even your church brethren, and subscribe if you haven't yet done so. Please ensure that you all utilize the progress bar that's located at the bottom of the video, as well as the timestamps that are located not only in the comment section but the video description, so that you can skip to the points in the video that you want to see the most in order to save time, because we know that the videos over here with the Jamaica can be very long. Leave a comment down below letting me know what the that's been like in your area recently. Also feel free to ask any weather related question that you might have about the future of the weather in your specific area. Alright, so we're going to be looking at the Atlantic hurricane and tropical storm activity based on data from 1944 to 2020, and we can see that we're smack dab right here close to the middle of May, where we usually see a slight hint of activity. We see the reds, we see the yellows that represent what we see here on the key, hurricanes if not tropical storms, but it doesn't look like we're gonna be seeing anything in May. If you remember earlier in May, the models, especially the GFS, was hinting at something possibly developing, and as usual we always have to take those forecasts with a grain of salt, especially if the other supercomputer models are not showing the same thing, and we also have to take anything that comes after the 168 hour or 7-day mark with a grain of salt, because we know that it is definitely not set in stone and it could definitely change. So all of those rumors that were going around about a hurricane or a storm or something coming in the Caribbean by mid-May definitely has been squashed by now. If anything, it's just going to be an increase in moisture. If we take a look at the tropical and subtropical cyclone points of origin and tracks based on data from 1851 to 2023, we're looking at the time period from May 11 to 20, and all of these yellow dots and the lines attached to them represent where we've seen storms formed within that time frame from the mid 1800s all the way up to 2023, and we can see a lot of them right here to the south of Mexico pushing towards the west. We also see some of them across the Caribbean, one right here to the south of the Dominican Republic, one right here to the south of Jamaica, two right here to the north of Costa Rica and Panama. We also see a couple of them right here to the north of the Bahamas, the southwestern Atlantic. So we can definitely have storms form this time of year, especially given the right conditions for sure. We're going to be looking at the sea surface temperature anomalies. We can see the yellows into the oranges that represents the above normal sea surface temperatures that we know fuel these storms in general. This is what keeps these storms or hurricanes going, keeps them strengthening, keeps them forming. We see a lot of that across the main development region into the Caribbean. We can also see some of that across the far eastern Pacific. We also see a lack of that across the central to the western portion of the eastern Pacific, and we know that all of that has to do with more of a neutral like pattern. So it's not yellows, oranges, and reds that represents more of an El Nino like pattern that would promote more storms forming this side of the world, thus causing a more upper level wind shear across the Caribbean. It's more neutral, and we had neutral like conditions when we had Hurricane Beryl in July 2024. So we don't need a La Nina with all of the very blues that represents cooler than average temperatures across the eastern to the central Pacific waters, which would basically mean less storms across this portion of the basin, and less upper level wind shear, basically promoting more formation of systems across our neck of the woods in general and shutting down the eastern to the central Pacific. So the neutral and the La Nina patterns are what we've been receiving recently. It's going to be very interesting to see all of this plays out as we head into the peak months of hurricane season. We should also highlight the ocean heat content. So we're not talking only about what we just saw, the warm waters at the surface of the ocean or the skin of the ocean. We're talking about the ocean heat content, which basically shows how warm the waters are the deeper we go into the ocean. And anything that has to do with the greens, yellows, oranges, or reds represents that deep warm water that we know if a tropical system should sit on top of that area for a prolonged period of time, it is going to be churning up even more warm water, thus making the system stronger. And we see a lot of that across the waters to the southwest of Jamaica, to the east of the Yucatan, a lot of that to the northeast of South America. Very interesting. It's going to be interesting to see how this actually looks by the time we head into the peak of hurricane season. Alright, so we're going to be looking at what the next 7 days have in store for us according to the latest Euro and GFS supercomputer model runs that came out today. So keep your eyes focused on the timestamp right here at the top as we go to the next 168 hours. Keep your eyes focused on Jamaica right here as we look for all of this that we see on the key on the right. That's the reds, the oranges, the yellows, and the greens represents inches of rainfall. So let's see what's going to be taking place. As we head into Sunday morning, we know that 12Z represents 7 a.m. and we see some isolated showers across the far eastern end of the island in the greens according to the latest Euro. We also see an abundance of moisture across the southeastern US down into the Gulf and Central America. We also see some isolated shower activity across portions of the Eastern Caribbean. Very interesting. Then on Sunday afternoon, maybe some isolated showers, maybe across Eastern, Central, Western parishes. On the GFS, what do we see? Sunday morning, not showing that morning rainfall across the far east. Clear skies it seems. Then on Monday afternoon, it looks to be some isolated showers more so across the northwestern end. We'll see how that actually plays out on Sunday afternoon. Let us see what Monday morning is showing us. On Monday morning, not really much of anything for the island. Monday afternoon on the Euro, rainfall across sections of more so central and western parishes. What does the GFS show? Monday morning, nothing. Monday afternoon, maybe some isolated showers across the western end. What do we see for Tuesday morning? On Tuesday morning, not really seeing much of anything. On Tuesday afternoon, we see rainfall across eastern, central, and western parishes. Interesting. What does the GFS show for Tuesday morning? We see rainfall to our southwest, to our north, to our east. Don't see much on land. Then on Tuesday afternoon, we see that rainfall across mainly central and western parishes. Let us see what's going to be happening on Wednesday morning. On Wednesday morning, we see rainfall across the eastern end of the island. On Wednesday afternoon, we see rainfall across eastern, central, and western parishes. What does the GFS show for the same time period? Wednesday morning, eastern end of the island getting on that isolated shower activity. Wednesday afternoon, eastern, central, and western parishes. So we have some consensus with that Tuesday, Wednesday time frame. Looks like an increase in rainfall around midweek. That's what Thursday is showing. Thursday morning, eastern parishes with some isolated showers. Thursday afternoon, eastern, central, and western parishes with that afternoon rainfall. GFS, Thursday morning, rainfall to our west, rainfall to our north. What does the afternoon look like? Rainfall mainly across sections of some central and western parishes. What do we see for Friday morning? On Friday morning, we see an abundance of moisture first of all, extending from the Leeward Islands across Puerto Rico, Hispaniola, even the southwestern Caribbean. And we see some rainfall to our south and east on the Euro. And then by the end of the day on Friday afternoon, maybe some isolated showers across mainly central and western parishes. What does the GFS show for the same time period? Just like what the Euro was showing, an increase in moisture across the northeastern Caribbean, into portions of Puerto Rico, Hispaniola, the central to the southwestern Caribbean. We see some rainfall to our west, we see some rainfall across the far eastern end. Then on Friday afternoon, look at that, rainfall across central and western parishes. And then we're going to be wrapping it up right here at the end of the 168 hours. So this is valid for Saturday, May 17th. And just like what we stated, it's not a storm or anything. It's more so an increase in moisture. So what we saw in the GFS is more so convective feedback. Because look at all of the dark greens, yellows, oranges, reds in and around Puerto Rico, the central to the southwestern Caribbean. At that time, not seeing much of anything across Jamaica. But the GFS, on the other hand, for the end of the 168 hours, shows the greens that represent that increase in moisture in and around Puerto Rico, the eastern Caribbean, the waters to the north of Colombia, section of Central America. It's going to be very interesting to see how all of this plays out. Whatever happens, I'll definitely be here to keep you posted with what occurs. But regarding the total accumulated precipitation forecast maps here from the Euro and the GFS, both maps right here are showing all the rainfall that's expected from now up until Saturday, May 17. And we see the dark reds into the purples and the pinks. That represents anywhere from 2 to 5 inches of rainfall that could be affecting portions of Puerto Rico, the US and British Virgin Islands, the Leeward Islands, Guadeloupe, Dominica, Martinique. We also see some of that across sections of Florida, the northern Bahamas, western Cuba, the Yucatan right here, section of Guatemala, Belize, section of Central America, but more so the brunt of it being experienced across Costa Rica, Panama, Colombia, Venezuela, Trinidad and Tobago, Guyana, Suriname, French Guyana. Those are the areas that are shaded in the most dark reds, purples, pinks that represents 2 to 5 inches of rainfall, and we can clearly see that even the GFS is in consensus with that. So there could be some amount of isolated flash flooding in these spots over the next 7 days. But regarding the areas that are shaded in the greens, yellows, oranges, and reds, that we know from the key on the right that represents anywhere from 0.1 of an inch of rainfall all the way to an inch or more of rainfall. That could definitely be possible for areas such as the ABC Islands, Haiti, the Dominican Republic, Bahamas, Turks and Caicos, Cuba, the Cayman Islands, Jamaica, sections of maybe Grenada, St. Vincent and the Grenadines, St. Lucia, Barbados. And we clearly see that both the Euro and the GFS models are in agreement with that forecast, so the chances are higher for it to actually take place. But we're going to be focusing most of our attention on Jamaica now. The total accumulated precipitation forecast maps here for Jamaica from now up until Saturday, May 17 are showing that Jamaica is shaded from the eastern end to the western end in blues, greens, even some slight yellows that represents anywhere from a millimeter of rainfall all the way up to at least 30 millimeters of rainfall, especially on the Euro. The Euro showing the yellows that represents up to 30, maybe more than 30 millimeters of rainfall, especially across the far eastern end. But we see that rainfall across central and western parishes, the blues, the greens, anywhere from a millimeter all the way up to at least 25 millimeters of rainfall. And we know what usually affects the eastern end is going to be during the morning hours, and whatever affects the central to the western end is going to be during the afternoon hours. Euro clearly a bit more robust with the rainfall totals more than the GFS. GFS only showing more so those blues across the eastern end, but it's the central and western end of the greens that represent anywhere from 15 to at least 25 millimeters of rainfall. Either way, whatever happens, I will definitely be here to keep you posted with what occurs, especially on our other social media platforms, so stay tuned. Taking a look at the surface map of the Atlantic for this evening, you can see the frontal system still affecting a portion of the southeastern US. You can also see a ridge of high pressure right here to the north that we know is responsible for sending all of the easterly trade winds across the main development region into the Caribbean. And if we take a look at the visible satellite images of the Atlantic before we lost the sunlight, we can make out all of the entities that we just mentioned. Clouds associated with the frontal system still bring some cloud showers and thunderstorms to portion of the southeastern US extending down into the Gulf, and even portions of Central America getting lashed as we speak. We can also see the low level flow of the clouds being steered from east to west across the main development region into the Caribbean, all courtesy of the ridge of high pressure to the north. And I need to highlight how deep the convection is currently across portions of Central America. They're definitely getting lashed. Lots of shower and thunderstorm activity. We see the yellows, the oranges, the reds across portions of the Yucatan, Guatemala, Belize. All of this activity seeming to be shearing off towards the east as we speak. They're definitely getting nailed right now. We'll be talking about the rest of the Caribbean weather later on. Let us focus our attention on the prediction that was made in yesterday's video about the weather across Jamaica for today, Saturday, May 10, 2025. It was stated that rainfall would have been in the forecast, especially during the afternoon, for parts of eastern, central, western parishes. I don't know, eastern Jamaica, we're talking about those parishes in the county of Surrey, like Portland, St. Thomas, Kingston, St. Andrew. Central parishes, we're talking about those parishes in the county of Middlesex, like St. Anne, St. Mary, Manchester, Clarendon, St. Catherine. Or western parishes, we're talking about those parishes in the county of Cornwall, like Hanover, St. James, Trelawney, Westmoreland, and St. Elizabeth. And what ended up happening? At around 2:55 p.m., the visible satellite images were posted right here on our Twitter page with the Jamaica, as well as on our Instagram page with the Jamaica, on our TikTok page with the Jamaica, and on our Facebook page with the Jamaica 876. So if you have one of those social media platforms, please ensure that you follow us there as we make posts throughout the day that you can't afford to miss. So the visible satellite images really highlighted the low level flow. It looked to be more of an east-southeasterly kind of flow across the island. Then we had some nice clouds pushing in from the east-southeast, and they brought some isolated sprinkles to my portion of the island. St. Thomas definitely got some overcast skies, if not some isolated shower activity this afternoon. Very grateful for that. But at that time, we weren't seeing central and western parishes getting in on anything at all. But it definitely did happen. We saw some brief isolated shower activity across northwestern St. Andrew, northern St. Catherine, but that was basically it. Didn't see much of anything elsewhere at all. Maybe some isolated showers across section of Hanover, but nothing significant. We see some isolated showers even while we're losing the sunlight across section of St. James. So I guess that counts for the eastern, central, western parishes. St. Thomas, northern St. Catherine, section of Hanover, section of St. James. Let me know if you actually had some amount of rainfall today, but clearly we see that the rest of the island was receiving clear skies, if not some partly cloudy conditions. Even the infrared close-up satellite images right here, not really showing much of anything in terms of convection. Just a brief speck of convection right here across northwestern St. Andrew. We saw the blue. We also saw the activity right here to the south of St. Thomas. But that's just about it. Don't even see any sparkling white. That's to represent lightning strikes or lightning flashes. Even the live camera here from See Jamaica's YouTube channel at around 1:12 p.m. was confirming that Kingston was definitely dry for the most part. Looks also to be at the time a bit partly cloudy. Nothing significant in terms of bad weather taking place today as we look towards New Kingston right there. And I would like for you to keep in mind that if you'd like to see more live streams like this, just visit See Jamaica on YouTube. They have these live streams for your viewing pleasure, and they're planning on increasing the amount of cameras that they have in and around the island. So subscribe to See Jamaica so that you don't miss out. Alright, so we're going to be looking at some of the comments that came in here from some of our subscribers and followers. We have Bob Brown, 3953, getting rain in St. Mary. This was posted 12 hours ago in the morning. Thanks for confirming. We have Active 4081, by the way. By the way, oh yeah, didn't even get to mention the rainfall that took place. But although it was forecasted for eastern, central, and western parishes during the afternoon, we got a shocker because a post had to be made in the morning, even although the models weren't showing morning rainfall. We definitely had morning rainfall across section of the northeast this morning, because at around 6:46 a.m. the visible satellite image was posted and it highlighted some clouds. I'm glad that Bob Brown refreshed my memory. We had some clouds across Portland, St. Mary, and St. Anne this morning. 6:46 early this morning. We got some nice isolated shower activity for sure. So even although the models did not predict it, these things can definitely happen. Sometimes we get some surprise rainfall that the models did not predict. These models are definitely not 100% accurate all the time. So yes, Bob Brown confirming that rainfall in St. Mary this morning, but it wasn't predicted. We also have Active 4081 stating Clarendon, hot and sunny. We have on our Instagram page Dalmain stating some rain just stopped falling in Boscobel, St. Mary. Yup, thanks for confirming what was being seen on the satellite image. And finally, on our Facebook page, we had Verona Burke stating rain in Ocharias, and Taylor, or Latoya Taylor, responding Cynthia Boyle, sun hot bad, and Verona responding the sun is very hot now. That was posted a couple of hours after that rainfall. Alright, so let us see what's happening right now. The very latest still image from the Weather Nerds website is showing 0025 UTC, which is actually 7:25 p.m. So this just came out 5, 10, 14 minutes ago, considering that it's 7:39 p.m. right now. Now we don't see much of anything across the entire island. What we do see are some clouds right here to the west of us. Do we actually have rainfall within those clouds though? Let us see the latest Cuban Doppler radar, the latest Guantanamo Bay Cuban naval radar, and the latest Cayman radar to confirm. Unfortunately, it looks like the latest Cuban Doppler radar seems to have glitched out. Has it? Okay, didn't glitch out. So our reload fixed it. And it's showing up to at least 8:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. It's actually 7:30 p.m. Jamaica time. So this just came out 10 minutes ago, considering that it's 7:40 p.m. now. And you can actually make out that rainfall to the west of us. You see the greens, you see the yellows. You know the greens represents moderado, that's moderate rainfall. The yellows represents fuerte, that's stronger heavy rainfall. So that was 7:30. We're actually seeing that rainfall for sure. We can see to the west of us to match what we just saw on the infrared. All of these clouds are representing that rainfall. The Guantanamo Bay Cuban Naval Radar imagery not showing much of anything across southeastern Cuba, northeastern Jamaica, but we do see some isolated shores right here to the north of the western peninsula of Haiti. Taking a look at the Cayman radar, just like what the Cuban Doppler radar image was just showing, we're seeing the rainfall right here to the west of Hanover and Westmoreland, definitely confirming what we saw on the latest infrared right here. You can also see some isolated shores to the south of the Cayman Islands right there as well. Taking a look at the temperatures right now, we can see about 27 degrees Celsius in both Montego Bay and Kingston. And by about 4 a.m. on Sunday, temperature should have down to about 25 degrees Celsius in both Montego Bay and Kingston. Taking a look at the temperature forecast for tomorrow. This map from the GFS is valid for 18th on Sunday, which is actually 1 p.m. on Sunday, and we can see Jamaica right here, embedded in some slight orange colors. That represents maybe up to 2 degrees Celsius, maybe even up to 3 degrees Celsius above normal temperatures. And we know the normal temperature for the month of May across Jamaica is around 89 degrees Fahrenheit, and when that's converted to degrees Celsius that we use here in Jamaica, that's around 31.6 degrees Celsius. So it should be receiving anywhere from 31.6 to at least 33.6 degrees Celsius at most for Jamaica's temperature on Sunday. So it's definitely going to be hot. And unfortunately, we have at least one maintenance outage advisor here from my JPS Online's Twitter page that we have to highlight. Because now that we have to highlight these due to the fact that when we have power outages, it can definitely make the heat feel even worse because we don't have our fan or AC to cool us down. So if you live or work in these areas, or if you have friends or relatives who live or work in these areas, please let them know that a power outage is coming their way on Sunday, May 11, 2025. We're referring to Rock River NWC water pump in the parish of Clarendon from 8:30 am to 5 p.m. and it's going to be an NWC water pump that's going to be affected. That means some people are not going to have water all day. Interesting. If you're smart, get the washing done. If you get water from the water pump, get the washing done from today or tonight. Alright, so we have some tips right here to beat the heat as usual. It states here, when outside, seek shade. Eat fresh, try eating cold food such as salads and fruits. Rest, make sure you get enough sleep and rest if you're feeling tired. Soak, take a cool shower or a bath to help you cool down. And I cannot stress enough the importance of staying hydrated throughout the day. Drink lots of water throughout the day. And even if you're not thirsty, put away those sugar drinks and drink water instead. Taking a look at the dry air map, we know that the dry air is represented by what we see here on the key on the bottom. That's the yellows, the oranges, the reds, and the whites. In those areas, you can see the abundance of dry air across portion of the northern section of the North Atlantic, right here in and around the Cabo Verde Islands of the west coast of Africa. We see an abundance of dry air across the Bahamas as well. We know the dry air is responsible for keeping the atmosphere stable, making it harder for it to rain, making it harder for us to get storms this time of year. And we also see a lot of blues across the eastern Pacific, across section of the Caribbean and the main development region, as well as the intertropical convergence zone. We see the yellows as well, that represents the low end of the scale in terms of dry air, and the blues that represent the moist air in general. And that's what we want to see. We want to see the moist air so that we have more rainfall in order to keep water in our pipes. But regarding the Saharan dust forecast, for 18 UTC on Sunday, that's 1 p.m. on Sunday, we can see the slight brown shades across the southern main development region into portion of the Windward Island. As a matter of fact, we're also seeing some slight Saharan dust into portion of Jamaica. But it's only a 1 on the scale, nothing significant at all. Most Jamaicans didn't even notice that today. And for the most part, anything across the southern main development region is only going up to a 1, at least to a 15 on the dust concentration near ground scale. Any form of light shades of browns is nothing significant, nothing to worry about. What we don't want to see is all of this that we see across Africa. As a matter of fact, this wasn't for today. This is going to be for 1 p.m. on Sunday. So it's going to be here to the south of Jamaica, just a 1. Let me know if you actually see the Saharan dust tomorrow. But I'm pretty sure that you won't, especially considering that it's nothing like what is across Africa now. All of these dark shades of brown that can definitely cause very hazy skies, not to mention trigger some amount of respiratory illnesses in some persons. Taking a look at the wave forecast for tomorrow, we can see that we have more light shades of blues to dark shades of blues across the Gulf into the Bahamas, the Western Caribbean and the Eastern Caribbean. But look at that, we're seeing more dark blues and purples that represents anywhere from 2 to 3 meter wave heights, and that's because of the winds that are expected. Look at the wind right here. First of all, across the Gulf is from the northwest. Towards Florida is from the south or the southwest. Across the Caribbean is from the east for the most part. And look at the colors. We're seeing the green into the yellows, especially right here to the south of Jamaica to the north of Colombia. That's where the strongest winds are located, representing anywhere from 20 to 30 knots right here. And if we take a look at Jamaica's wave forecast for tomorrow, let's zoom in a bit. On the north coast, it should be up to at least 1.4 meter wave height right here to the north of Trelawney. Right here, 1.5 meter wave height to the north of Portland, 1.3 meter wave height to the north of Hanover, Westmoreland 1.2 meter wave height, south of St. Elizabeth 1.5 meter wave height, south of Clarendon 1 meter wave height, south of St. Thomas 1.7 meter wave height. And more than likely, if you venture more southward, waves are going to be building even more. Look at that, 2.3, and even building the more south you go, 2.5. Definitely going to be rough seas for sure way out there, and that's because of the winds that are expected. We can clearly see that easterly flow tomorrow, and we see the bright greens, we see the yellows, represents anywhere from 20 all the way up to at least 25 knots. Let us confirm 18 knots right here to the north of St. Anne, right here to the north of Hanover, 19 knots, 20 knots right here to the south of Manchester and St. Elizabeth. Very interesting. And regarding the upper level winds still coming in from the west tomorrow. So if we actually get in on some convection tomorrow, we could get none of those clouds being sheared out towards the east again by that upper level wind shear, like what we got in on today with those brief isolated bursts of convection. And regarding the actual rainfall forecast maps now, this map from the Euro and this map from the GFS are valid for 8 a.m. Eastern Standard Time, which is actually 7 a.m. Jamaica time. And what do both maps show? The blues represent some isolated showers across section of the far eastern end. Maybe section of eastern St. Thomas, eastern Portland. Look out for that early morning isolated shower activity. Then, by around 3 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, it's actually 2 p.m. Jamaica time, the Euro and the GFS are showing something similar, but some contrast as well. We see the blues represent isolated shower activity across section of Trelawney, St. James, Hanover and Westmoreland, so it seems to be more so a kind of northwestern parishes kind of activity. We also see the rain for those areas on the Euro, but the Euro is trying to incorporate section of St. Anne, St. Mary, northern St. Catherine, and eastern St. Thomas and Portland. Still, we don't see that on the GFS, so we're still working with consensus. So the forecast would be morning rainfall for eastern Jamaica, since we both have consensus, and afternoon rainfall across northwestern parishes in Jamaica. It's going to be very interesting to see how this plays out, and I'm more inclined to believe what the GFS is showing than the Euro, especially considering that we don't have more of an east-south-easterly flow where all of the air would be piling up across northern parishes. So it's going to be more so across the northwest, especially where we see the blues. That's where the air is going to be piling up. And even the total accumulated precipitation forecast map from the Euro and the GFS are adamant that could rain somewhere across Jamaica the next month, whereas the Euro going up into the greens and the yellows that represent up to at least 0.3 of an inch of rainfall. That's the eastern end, the western end. GFS is more so concerned with the northwestern end, only up to 0.17 of an inch of rainfall expected. We'll see exactly what unfolds, and whatever happens, we'll definitely take it. We're in the month of May, and in Kingston, whose bar graph is being shown right here at the top, we usually receive close to 140 millimeters of rainfall for the month of May. In Montego Bay, whose bar graph is being shown right here at the bottom, we usually receive up to or close to 6 inches of rainfall for the month of May. And I'd like for you to keep in mind that if you'd like to find out what your specific parish usually receives in terms of rainfall for the month of May or for the entire year, you can visit weatherandclimate.com, and that website will show you that information. And you can use this nice graphic right here that converts rainfall from inches to millimeters. Know that 1 inch of rainfall is about the same as 25 millimeters of rainfall, so you can do the calculations yourself. Alright, so that is it for the forecast across Jamaica. Let us focus our attention on the rest of the Caribbean. So as stated, we have some low-level clouds and mid-level clouds being steered from east to west across the eastern Caribbean into the Caribbean. some isolated showers, definitely wind those clouds. We see the usual afternoon thunderstorms across section of Northern and South America. The thunderstorms associated with the frontal system that's currently affecting the southern US, as well as section of Central America, sections of Guatemala, Belize, the Yucatan Peninsula, Honduras getting lashed as we speak. And if we take a look at what's happening regarding the Doppler radar imagery, over there near Puerto Rico, let's see what's happening right now. We see some hit or miss isolated shores in and around these islands as we speak. Puerto Rico, water surrounding there, surrounding the British Virgin Islands, surrounding Antigua and Barbuda, Guadeloupe, Dominica, Martinique, getting on some isolated shores as we speak. And if we load these images from earlier today, we can see that eastern and western Puerto Rico are definitely getting lashed, especially the northeastern end near San Juan, definitely got some rainfall, so too the Dominican Republic. We see the easterly flow with that rainfall across the majority of the Leeward Islands, hit or miss isolated shores for the most part. We also see some of that, especially passing to the north of Barbados. Some of this might have already been affecting Barbados. You can also see some of this pushing in from the east to affect sections of Martinique, sections of Dominica, Martinique, St. Lucia, St. Vincent, and the Grenadines as well. Maybe even as far south as Dominica. Not really see much of anything across Tobago, but maybe Trinidad might be getting on some isolated shores right now. Who knows? The weather Doppler radar images confirming that rainfall to the west of Florida, section of central Florida, section of northern portions of central Cuba, section of the Yucatan. We can definitely make it a moderate to heavy rainfall given the infrared that we saw before it ended on the loop. So it makes sense that they're getting in on somewhat of significant rainfall over there, spilling into section of Guatemala, Belize, Honduras. We also see some rainfall across section of northwestern Venezuela, eastern Venezuela, Guyana, Suriname as well. And regarding where the brunt of the rainfall is expected within the next 24 hours, both maps right here from the year and the GFS are adamant that the most rainfall over the next 24 hours should be across the Yucatan, where we see the dark reds into the purples of 1 inch or more of rainfall. We see Belize, Guatemala, Honduras, El Salvador, Nicaragua, Costa Rica, Panama, Colombia, sections of Venezuela, Guyana, Suriname, French Guiana getting on some of that. But more of that isolated shore activity expected for sections of St. Vincent, sections of Barbados, St. Lucia, Martinique, Dominica, Guadeloupe, section of the Leeward Islands. We also see that rainfall expected for the US and British Virgin Islands, Puerto Rico, Dominican Republic for the most part, section of Cuba, section of Jamaica, and sections of the Cayman Islands. And we can clearly see that both the Euro and the GFS models are in agreement with that forecast. I know that when they're in agreement like this, the chances are higher for it to actually take place. Alright, so that's it for today. Thanks for watching.